All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're from. My name is Anthony Ray here on the Ray Law International channel. We're here for our July live stream. We're going to give people a few minutes to get connected, so make sure our audio and our video is going. So give us just a minute and make sure that we are doing good. Light, lights, sounds are good. Give me an okay on sound. Good. Video's good. Awesome. Okay. As you guys know, there's so much going on with U.S. immigration, but today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to jump into that in just a moment. We're going to give people a couple minutes to make their way here. As you may or may not know, there are a lot of minor changes going on in U.S. immigration. We're not going to be able to talk about all of them today. However, if you do have a question, feel free to put that in the chat and we'll address it here on this live stream, or we'll follow up with you. Feel free to visit our YouTube channel. This video will be there. Also, if you have questions, we can respond there. But the best way to reach us and get solutions to your questions or move your immigration matter forward, or if you're HR or senior managers, to get reliable, trustworthy immigration services to take care of your team, the best way is to give us a call. And please, please, please give us a call. You can reach us at 888-401-1016. Again, that's 888-401-1016. Let's see how we are doing. Just a moment. All right. Got a few more people. Excellent. All right. Again, as you guys are joining, my name is Anthony Ray. I'm the host of today. I have some really great news at the end of our live stream today. It's going to be exciting. That's going to actually be happening in the next 24 hours. So it's going to be a little bit different. However, I think our viewers are going to love it. And we're looking forward to that. I'll give that information at the end. All right. I think we are good. We are going to go ahead and get started. Now, today I will be sharing my screen, so bear with me if I look away or I have to kind of move things, even though we do have support, this is going to be off of my computer. So let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to another live stream here on the Ray Law International channel. Today we're going to explore the intersection of immigration, identity, and the global change. I'm your host, Anthony Ray, and today's episode is one that sort of flips a familiar narrative on its head. For decades, the U.S. has been a beacon for those fleeing persecution, war, instability. But what happens when Americans themselves start seeking asylum in other countries? That's what we're going to talk about today. Yes, you heard me right. A few U.S. citizens, excuse me, a few U.S. citizens are now applying for asylum abroad from Canada to New Zealand, from Mexico to other parts of Europe. We're seeing a small but growing number of U.S. citizens fleeing the U.S. They once called home. And I want to keep it small. Oftentimes the news, blows this up and there may be several hundred or a couple thousand, but in essence, our population, that's still a very small number. However, some people are seriously considering this. So what is happening? Who are these people and what does it mean for our American dream? Stay with us as we dive into personal stories, legal challenges, international responses, and the broader implications of this surprising trend. All right. Also, our team's going to put that on there. If you have questions, throw that in the chat, either on LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever it is. Just reach out to us. We want this to be interactive, even if it's off topic or a little bit different. Whatever's on your mind that is immigration related, feel free to put your questions in the chat or comments. Also, let us know where you're listening from. Go ahead, put the country. That way we know who our audience is and who's staying in touch and staying connected. So let's start by grounding ourselves in what is asylum? What does it really mean? Under international law, particularly in the 1951 Refugee Convention, asylum is the protection granted to individuals fleeing persecution based off of race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or a membership in a particular social group. Most people think of asylum as something you seek in the US, not from it. But recent years have seen a shift, actually recent months have seen a shift. Reports have surfaced of American citizens applying for asylum in countries like Canada. Now we're going to talk about how hard it is. But where where immigration lawyers say they've received an unprecedented inquiries from U.S. nationals in 2023 alone. Over 500 Americans reportedly sought asylum in Canada. Others have tried Mexico, New Zealand, Australia, Germany, and even Ghana. So what's the driving force? Why are people doing this, right? There are various reasons, but some common themes are as follows. They include political persecution, especially about participation in protests, civil unrest tied to police violence or government crackdowns, racial injustice, particularly against Blacks, Latinos, and Indigenous Americans, and then lack of access to healthcare and fears about the rise in gun violence and mass shootings. So these are just some of the reasons people are giving for choosing to make some other country their home. In short, some U.S. citizens no longer feel safe here in the U.S. And I just want to highlight one of my coaches had mentioned a recent debate that was done. I'm not going to name it here, it's very popular, but it kind of sets the tone for how things have changed here in the US. And one of the greatest things that have changed in the past 5, 10 years is social media. It is really changing our world, our culture, and more importantly, things here in the US. So let's bring this in a little closer to home with some real stories, okay? And here's where I'm going to share my story. Okay? We don't have a lot, as we mentioned, only about 500 people in that survey that year is looking to apply for asylum. And we'll talk about how challenging it is for a U.S. citizen like myself to meet those requirements. And I'm going to give you some pointers because here we do handle asylum cases. Asylum matters outside of immigration court, and we do a few in immigration court. So we know the standard, I argued the standard, we know the rules, we live it, we represent our clients, and it's very challenging. A lot of people feel that asylum is easy or a path to a green card. The standard is very tough, and more important, we'll talk about evidence and credibility in this moment. So let me share my screen. And all right, so the first real life story we're going to talk about is a couple and a family that lived in Illinois. This was, I believe, several years ago. Let me double check actually, this report was from March 2025, where we have Caitlin and Ted Berg, who, because of the changes that happened here in the United States, I'm not going to get into politics, but they made the choice to apply for asylum in Canada. And as you read this article, you see some of the things that I've highlighted as the reasons people are choosing to move to other countries, Canada being one of them. But what you're also going to find in this article is very fair. It is very challenging right now for U.S. citizens. And while a person may feel things are bad, we still have protections for the most part against certain persecutions. As you can see, a lot of people who, for example, are not granted, or for individuals whose due process is violated, meaning they've been thrown in jail with no charges and with no reason and for an extended period of time, there are now lawsuits alleging that the law has been broken. So there is paths right now, as we speak here in second half of 2025. However, as these constitutional rights continue to deteriorate and we lose those, the case for this family and many others is going to become stronger. Now, in this case, I believe there was a whole gender issue, and they wanted to protect their family in addition to multiple other things. Now, it's still ongoing, there's been no resolution, and it's going to be decided on the merits of that case. So, this is a great example of real life 2025 of a family that said, you know what, it's not safe here in the US. I'll seek safety and sanctuary in another country. Um, that was very interesting. I think the next one is also very interesting. Hopefully, let's see if I can switch my screen. I'm going to have to actually change that. Give me just a moment. The next one is really good. I like this one because it's going to be talking about um, Ireland. Let's share our stuff. Let's add another screen. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I want to get this up here. Yep, here we go. All right. So this is also pretty, how recent are we looking at? This is fairly recent as well, in March of 2025 as well. And this comes from the Times. So in this article, it talks about the number of U.S. citizens um, seeking to get citizenship and asylum in Ireland. I know a lot of people have been going to Ireland for vacation. If you've been there, put a message in the chat. Let us know how it is. I've seen beautiful pictures of Ireland, and hopefully I'll have the opportunity to visit in the near future. But more than just visiting, more than just getting your birth certificate in Ireland, people are considering that as sort of a safe haven to get away from the U.S. So this article also highlights the number of people. Again, we're not talking hundreds of thousands of people, which would be significant. We are talking about maybe a few hundred or a few thousand. However, there has been an increase in 2025, and that's key. So we need to watch these trends as U.S. citizens consider, is it still safe to be here? Am I being persecuted because I attended one of the protests? Am I being persecuted because of the color of my skin? Whatever it may be, U.S. citizens are now actually thinking about that. Now, it would be interesting to see, here in the U.S., there's discrimination, well, there still is, but I mean, sort of state-sponsored discrimination, 60, 70 years ago. And it would be great to see did people during that period of time go ahead and seek asylum or other countries for to get away. And it's interesting that a lot of people are looking at Ireland, which is a great place to get away. Just want to shout out and say, hello to those who are paying, chatting in from the Philippines and Vietnam. Great to see you guys. Feel free if you have questions to put those in the chat, maybe about this chat topic or any other immigration topic that you may have. So Ireland is another place that people are seeking. I don't, a lot of people who have ancestry can also get their birth certificate and make that move. Others, you're going to have to go through the asylum process. Now, a great source, which we'll talk about in just a moment, stop sharing that and get back to our main topic, is one of the resources that I've been kind of leaning towards in preparation, which is I'm going to recommend it to everyone as you learn more about this topic, is from there's a book in 2016 called Asylum and Sanctuary. articles. I'm going to pull it up in a minute, but the author talks about sort of the changes, and we're going to recommend it. We'll put it in the chat afterwards. But we recommend you to our I think her name was Laura, professor, associate professor at the University of Maryland, or Robin. She did in 2016. Her book about asylum and sanctuaries is wonderful. If you go to the afterwards section on page 256, that kind of shows you where we're at right now. And I would love for her to sort of update that. I mean, it's been almost 9 years since she wrote that afterwards. And it is so telling of what the US is doing right now and the human rights issues and questions that are being asked. And it's striking. And one would think that, hey, things are awful in the US, we just never see that. But you'll see that other countries, other countries face the same challenges and issues that we're facing here in the US. Australia, Great Britain, I mean, each country, Germany, France, each country has their own policies, and we're going to touch on some recommendations from that at the end that I think is going to be helpful. So, so far, I'm going to switch a little bit because I want to make sure we stay on track and stay on time. How are other countries responding? Those are a couple of our real life examples. Oh, one last, and I apologize. As you know, we're an immigration law firm. We get calls all the time. We had one call this past week where we had a U.S. citizen that was looking to go to an African country to, relocate. And asylum is one of those tools. It doesn't have to be. There's many other ways to go to other countries. And actually, our upcoming live stream in less than 24 hours, you'll talk to people we're going to talk to someone who has done that. They didn't go through asylum. However, there are many other ways to get out of the U.S. which doesn't involve asylum. Maybe it's through employment. Maybe it's retirement. Whatever it may be, there's many options out there other than asylum. We're just looking at asylum and the basis for staying there permanently. So most countries are cautious. Countries like Canada and Germany will still view the U.S. as a safe country. And for the most part, yes, it's changing, meaning that they assume U.S. citizens are not at risk and are not at risk of persecution, and that makes asylum claims for U.S. citizens very difficult to win. Not impossible, and there are alternatives such as humanitarian reasons. The legal standard is tough. Claimants must prove a well-founded fear of persecution and that their home country can't or won't protect them. Immigration attorneys say that cases are rising, but outcomes vary. A recent interview with a Canadian immigration lawyer reveals that although many American cases are dismissed, some are moving forward under humanitarian exceptions. Remember, humanitarian exceptions here in the U.S. We also have humanitarian parole. It's discretionary. It may not work very well right now, but it is an option. Internationally, organizations like the UNHCR have begun to monitor this trend, especially in the U.S. You can read some reports on what the UN is seeing here in the U.S. and the human rights violations that are happening right here in the U.S. UNHCR spokesman said that no country is immune from political instability in the U.S. or social unrest. Our obligation, the UN's obligation, is to assess each claim on its merits. Academic and legal scholars are now debating a once unthinkable question. Can the U.S. be can the U.S. still be a universally considered safe country? And if you haven't seen the debate that was on the internet digitally, check it out. Now, that brings us to the big picture. What does it mean for the American dream? When its own U.S. citizens receive refugee elsewhere, some experts see this as a form of protest, a symbolic rejection of American policies and values that no longer are recognized. Others call it a quiet exodus, wanting to know that some could this trend increase with rising polarization erosion of democratic norms, violence, and healthcare crisis, more U.S. citizens are seeking whether safety and opportunity might exist beyond U.S. borders. The psychological toll is significant. Many asylum seekers, this is just generally asylum seekers, report feelings of loss, guilt, and alienation. They still love their country or this country, but feel abandoned by it. Choosing exile isn't easy. It's not easy to go to another country. We'll find out a little bit more about that tomorrow. But for some, it's the only choice that allows them to live without fear. And that's the key. Is it a well-founded fear? One of the things I want to touch on when we talk about asylum, we have to show a well-founded fear of being persecuted. Okay. And secondly, the other element is there's no protection. The government will not protect you. They can't protect you. And my key in what we do with our clients is we document things very well. Okay? It's very, very important. All too often, why some of the asylum, why many of the asylum claims are ignored or are dismissed is they don't have evidence. And the other aspect I want to focus on, just going to touch on, this is why you hire an expert an immigration attorney, is lack of credibility. And all too often, people applying for asylum are not attorneys, they're not judges, and they don't know how to give testimony, they don't know how to tell their story, and often what they'll do is they'll contradict themselves and lose credibility. And that's why so many people will say, oh, that person lied, asylum is bad. That's not true. And I implore my audience and those viewing this video to really, really listen to the individual stories because people, many, most, have a real well-founded fear. Now, to meet the other elements of asylum, maybe, maybe not, but that is why we have an immigration system. Okay? We really should be strengthening our immigration system, meaning having more immigration judges and more immigration attorneys to see whether people have a legitimate asylum claim or whatever the defense they may have, cancellation of removal or some other or withholding defense. It is important to have more immigration judges in the U.S. and more immigration attorneys, good ones that are qualified, that are going to do the right thing in order to defend their clients. And I tell anybody that we represent on asylum cases that preparation is like you're going to trial. You really need to spend we usually spend about 5 to 6 hours preparing our clients for their individual hearing or their asylum interview. That's how much. If your attorney's not drilling, rehearsing, answering questions, guiding you, and preparing you for that, you're going to make mistakes in your interview, and that's going to cause you to lack credibility and have your case denied. And you may have a serious, well-documented case, but small things can derail that, and that could cause you problems. All right, there is one question. We're going to get to that in just a moment. Before we finish up, just a moment. Okay, I wanted to touch on that point. I wanted to make sure we got that in there to make sure that you hear that, because it's so important to know the elements, to have a professional. If you don't have a professional in your home country, reach out to us. We have a network. We can refer someone to you and get you connected with someone that we can vet and make sure that we're going to do the right thing for you, and not just take your money and leave you to do things. Now, continuing on, could this trend increase? Possibly. We talked about the polarization of our the erosion of our democracy, and the psychological toll. So here's the question to leave with you today. We'll get to our other questions. Is the U.S. still a safe haven for all, or are there cracks in the foundation driving people to seek safety elsewhere? Let me know your opinions in the chat or in there. So just let us know. Is the U.S. still? I would argue that as of today, as of this video, perhaps the US is still safe because we still have some defenses, meaning I can still get arrested without probable cause and thrown in jail and sit there for 110 days, but at least there's a system to protect myself. We hope that our democracy is not eroded anymore. And more than ever, what we need here in the US is one or two things. One, we need a Supreme Court and a court system that's going to follow the rule of law and enforce our rights um, under the Constitution. And the second thing that we need is we need politicians to do the right thing, to follow the law, and to protect their constituents and the people in the U.S. So those are sort of the two things that I feel are the U.S. needs. But maybe you have a different opinion. Let us know. Put it in the chat. There's no wrong or right solution. However, it's a very complicated fluid situation. So what I want to do before we wrap up and I give you the announcement of what's coming up, I did want to share. Look at some of the questions and give me a moment and see if we can address any of those here or whether we need to answer them a little bit offline. Okay. Let's see. Here's one of the questions. Which countries are most commonly accepting U.S. asylum seekers, and how do foreign governments view asylum claims with U.S. citizens, considering U.S. is often seen as a safe country? I think right now, the majority of the articles that we've read, people tend to go to Canada, which is, of course, close and easier to get to and less expensive. Alternatively, Mexico and also Europe, the European Union. The numbers are not great yet. There's not a large number, but the standard for all these countries is still, very high. There's a high bar. So often, as I mentioned, an alternative for these individuals, if they can, is to look at some other alternative immigration method, whether that's employment or family or humanitarian. So thank you for the question. We'll continue to monitor this. I think we're going to see a significant change as we move forward through 2025. And I don't think this is the end. I thought this topic would be great because it's at the very beginning. We're going to be seeing this come up more and more as the U.S. government takes various actions against its own citizens, U.S. citizens and foreign nationals. Let's see, what else do we have? Any other questions? No, I think that was it. I want to, before we finish up, I want to give one announcement. And that announcement is tomorrow, U.S. time, we're going to have a special guest on our show. And that guest is going to be at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check our channel. And we're going to have a special guest. We're going to talk about immigration and how that's impacted people personally and professionally. And I think you're going to love it. So please join us. Tracy Greenwood is going to be our guest. And if you kind of click on notifications, we got a promo video out there. I think that's going to be great. So feel free to check that out. I think you're going to love it. It's something a little bit different. It's a special live stream. And we have some great questions. And it's going to help you as you guys kind of think about, hey, do I stay in the U.S.? Do I live abroad? What is it like? What are some of the challenges I'm going to face in other countries? And I think the whole nationalism effort movement is found in many countries, whether that's Japan, the U.S., or in other areas. So hopefully it's, whether it's nationalism or fascism or some other, idea of that, I think we'll see a little bit more of that. So, All right. If there are there any other questions before we wrap up today? Go ahead. If you have any other questions, put those in the chat. We'll make sure we answer any questions we can live. We get a lot of calls through the week, and people have all kinds of situations from work visas, to family based, to removal proceedings, deportation proceedings, to asylum cases. Asylum at the border may be very challenging at the southern border, but it's still alive so far if people come to the United States and apply for asylum. The current administration is trying to crack down on that on asylum and, in essence, make it not available and making it more expensive and challenging. There are new rules that we have for asylum, so you want to reach out to us, get updated. If your immigration attorney is not responding to you and you've paid the money and they're supposed to, give us a call, see what we can do, get us an opinion, and see if your Brave Honor National is a good fit for them. We're just kind of reading some of the opinions out there. Um, and one of the, as you can see in the chat on YouTube, I'll put it on the screen. Thank you for your response. Thank you so much. Glad you're listening. U.S. is still considered a safe haven for seeking asylum. The process is definitely complex. Do not try to do it on your own. Um, Even after practicing for more than 25 years, there's slight changes. For example, there's fees that if you don't pay and you're ongoing and you're not paying attention, your case can be dismissed. And then ICE is going to show up at your door and remove you or put you in detention and shackle you with 10 other people and not feed you and do all kinds of horrible things. So the key is to make sure you have a professional. If you don't, please, please, please make sure you contact. And one of the other things, thank you for that comment. If you guys have other comments, go ahead and drop them in there. Another thing I want to just get out there and let people know, if you are here unlawfully or if you feel you have immigration issues, for example, I spoke to a green card holder the other day, and they had some criminal background that may impact them in the future. So they want to make sure they have an immigration attorney on call or available. Get us, contact your immigration attorney, contact us, make sure we have your documents, passports, birth certificates, and all that, so that we can definitely help you before ICE shows up at your door. All too often, people don't plan ahead. This is so critical at this time in U.S. history, U.S. immigration history, that you be more prepared and connected with the immigration professional. If you're not, you're going to be picked up. Can you hear me now? We had some connection issues. Sorry about that. All right. I don't know where we dropped off. I just want to repeat it real quick. For those who are either here unlawfully or overstayed your status and are at risk of being detained, reach out to an immigration professional, Ray Law International, as myself or anybody else, so that you can get in touch, have the proper documents to your immigration attorney so that we can help you. How do we help you? If you're detained, we can get you a quick bond hearing and try to get you out as quick as possible. We need documentation and information. We can help prepare you. We know how to do this. We do this all the time. You don't want to have your family members stressed. It's kind of like having, you know, insurance. You don't expect to use it, but when you need it and when you need it and the issues happen, you're so glad that you did. So reach out to us. Our contact information is on the screen. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We have an awesome receptionist, Beatrice, who would love to speak with you and see if it's something that we can help you out with. Awesome. Um, as I mentioned, the thing I wanted to mention is we do have in less than 24 hours a special live stream with our guest Tracy Greenwood. I'm so excited to speak with him and get his perspective. And I want to thank you for listening again on the Ray Law International. We do these once every month. Go to our website. We have a lot of videos and things that are helping the immigrant community. Please subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode if it resonated with you. Until next time, stay educated, stay informed, and stay on the right immigration path. Thank you. We'll see you next time.